The questions you face today can be hard to ask, but the answers hold insights that will shape the future. At Momentive, our agile experience management and insight solutions help today's decision makers shape what's next.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Zander Lurie. I am the CEO of Momentive, a new kind of agile experience management company. This is my first interview since our new brand, which we launched yesterday, 21-year-old SurveyMonkey. You may be familiar with Momentive as the makers of SurveyMonkey and Get Feedback. And so it feels really great to be out in the open, sharing with all of our thousands of registrants and attendees today the exciting work we did to relaunch our brand. And I have my dear friend Joey Zwillinger, the co-founder and co-CEO of Allbirds, to kick off our Fast Forward Live Market Research Conference today. You will hear several sessions with some really dynamic folks, and we're kicking off our keynote in the right way with one of the world's hottest CEOs of a company that's going through pretty explosive growth. So, Joey, welcome.
I'm honored to be here after such a big brand announcement and first conference. I'm pumped, and thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for putting on a collared shirt and agreeing to be our keynote speaker today. It's been so fun to watch your trajectory over the last few years, and to wear your shoes and to wear your new underwear and all the new apparel that you're coming out with. And just to kick it off this morning, I would love for you just to share with folks who know a little bit less about Allbirds. You know, maybe let's start with you personally, your journey. You're a Wharton grad and a Goldman alum, so not exactly the resume for the guy to go off and do something as innovative and entrepreneurial. Usually those folks end up running, large consulting firms or investment banks. So just tell us a little bit about your journey through life and your early career, which got you to Allbirds.
Yeah, and thanks for the starting off with such an overshare about you wearing our underwear today, which I appreciate. It is great underwear. Yeah, those are the more well-known brands that I have on my resume. But, I caught the bug for environmentalism pretty early on, like right after college. And I really wanted to get into something that did something powerful for the environment. And I found entrepreneurship as a dynamic vehicle to do something really positive in the private sector. So, after college, I was an engineer. I didn't know anything about business, and quickly got into stuff around small business. I was investing in small businesses, used my MBA really to move into a place where I was operating. And, it doesn't seem natural transition to go from what I'm about to say to being a cobbler, but I started doing biotechnology. And for 6 years, I was at a company where we were engineering microbes to replace petroleum. And we would ferment this microalgae that we engineered in 4-story tall fermenters. And whatever we programmed that algae to do would be a really unique chemical compound that could do a carbon zero, basically net carbon emissions replacement for petroleum. And that was an incredibly shaping experience for me, because really what I found was that the brands that I was selling to didn't really care. They said they cared, but they didn't care. And I kept on going to these companies, multinationals on the industrial side, brands that were facing consumers. And they were like, yes, we love it. High performance, no compromise on the environment. We love that. And then it was like, well, can you just do what I do now and do it a little bit cheaper? And that experience was like, it felt frustrating, Sisyphean. And fortunately, my wife happens to know my now co-founder's wife, and he came in like my knight in shining armor and presented this really unique opportunity with a shoe he'd been working on the side of his professional athletics career, playing soccer. I had realized consumers wanted a no compromise offering, and technology existed that could allow you to deliver this no compromise offering on amazing performance and no environmental damage, or at least very minimal. And yet the brands were in the middle, standing in the way. So it felt like this incredible opportunity to just step downstream, make something really exciting that we thought consumers would embrace. And that was the start of the journey. 5 years ago, we launched the Wool Runner on March 1st of 2016. And and we're fortunate enough to have some fans pretty quickly.
You sure do. I mean, I look at you as not only are you a CEO of a very fast-growing and multi-billion-dollar technology company, you're also a CEO in a apparel industry, apparel and shoes specifically. But as you stated in your background, I think environmentalism and activism is at the heart of everything you do. And so I would love for you just to share with entrepreneurs and the market researchers who are watching today, what is the dynamic of the consumer pulling us into new markets as opposed to companies run by well-heeled executives telling us what we should be interested in buying? Because Allbirds and just a few other companies, largely in the D2C space, are really the drivers behind this industrial shift.
Yeah, it's a great question, and I really do believe it's consumer pull completely, not just someone kind of preaching down to the masses on what they should be buying and using. It's completely the opposite. Consumers, I have a belief that consumers are incredibly smart, and they see through BS really easily and quickly. They're really busy, so you got to be able to deliver that message crisply and concisely. And you have to really clearly understand the inside of what's going on. I was back in that experience at my former company, Solazyme. I'd made a surfboard out of microalgae that was 0 carbon emissions. We had a pro surfer riding it. And then I went to the surfboard blank industry. I was like, hey, you guys can pay $10 more per blank, which was $100 per blank at the time. So 10% more, $10 on what's eventually a $700 product, and they wouldn't do it. And I'm like, these guys are floating around in seaweed. They want something good for the environment. Like these are your environmentalists, and yet the industry couldn't figure it out. And I say that context because these brands started 50 years ago. The big ones, the big brands of today, the legacy brands, they started 50 years ago. And they started with a mission to do something, whether in the sports industry about human aspiration and performance, or whatever it is that they're trying to achieve. And these things are like Titanics. You cannot once you have an entrenched brand perception and position with consumers, twisting that and turning that to a different direction to embrace sustainability or some other topic that isn't naturally in the DNA of the brand is incredibly hard, and it's unnatural feeling, an inauthentic feeling. And consumers, as I said, I think they're smart as hell, and they see right through it when big brands try to reverse engineer this stuff in. So, I like to call our approach kind of a purpose native approach, where we built it into the DNA from day one, and we authentically wove our mission such that our mission actually fuels better products and better financial outcomes for the company. And so if we do better financially, we also do better from an impact perspective. And that is incredibly powerful for a business model, and just for attracting talent and tapping in and understanding at the bleeding edge of what consumers want from a values perspective. We can tap into that. And so I think it's that was the insight early on, and it has changed way more quickly than I would have expected. Yeah. Way more.
No, it's authenticity is at your core. I'm going to ask you a compound question. For folks that are less familiar with Allbirds, just give us a little bit of the nuggets of the core components and ingredients which make the shoes so special. And then talk about how you're protecting this IP. I mean, you have so many knockoffs, and even some of the big companies that probably laughed at you early on are creating knockoffs. And then you all went and put some of your core IP, what you're doing for the environment, and open sourced it, which is like part of your competitive advantage. So kind of walk us through a little bit of the magic that makes the shoes so popular, how you protect it, and maybe how that authenticity keeps bringing people like me back to the website.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Appreciate your visits. Sugar, wool, and tree. Really
Obviously.
Simple, elemental, natural materials. We do a lot of incredibly complex things to those base materials once we do it to make them into amazing shoes for running, amazing shoes for lifestyle shoes, just getting around the city, and amazing things like Zander's wearing today, like our incredible underwear, briefs and boxer briefs. So the process that we've really embraced is to push the cutting edge of innovation and constrain that R&D process to naturally derived materials that must be lower carbon intensity than what the industry uses, and continually pushes us to be lower carbon intensity than what we are today. So we started, as an example, with merino wool as an upper for the wool runners. We knew we had a weakness on the soles of the shoe. And the soles were made from petroleum or natural gas. And that's where 90% of the sneaker industry uses this product called EVA. It's the foam in the middle of your soles. And it's all from petroleum. It's quite nasty and bad for the environment. And so we knew we had to fix that quickly. The challenging thing is these things take years. I mean, we had to go down to Brazil, which is where 50% of the sugarcane in the world is produced. And we had to convince a multi-billion-dollar company to invest millions of dollars, multi-billion-dollar. I don't know if I said that correctly. Like a huge chemical company in South America to produce green EVA with a process of waste stream from sugarcane through a bunch of process steps, and out comes this carbon negative green EVA based on sugarcane. And we knew that if we did this, 90% of the industry uses this material. And we decided we would open source this for a couple of reasons. One is if the whole industry switched, we would be saving millions and millions of tons of carbon dioxide equivalent emissions globally, and it would be better for the planet. So it's just a win for everybody. And we would drop the price. And we made sure to dial in the best price. And so this kind of win-win business and environment dynamic, that is with the ethos of what we're about. And we believe that is a model that can win and be durable in the long run. And so now, UGG, Puma, Timberland, list goes on and on. All of those companies are using the material that we co-invented with this Brazilian company. The world is getting way better. We're getting better price. And this is a consistent theme that we try to do with a bunch of different materials that we have. And not everything can be open source like that. Some of the things we sprinkle a little secret pixie dust, and that pixie dust really makes the magic happen in these products. We want to keep some of that proprietary. But we try to be thoughtful about when we can. We broadcast this openly, and we ask people to steal our sustainability. We ask people to do that, not just rip off our design and things like that. And I think that's the value lens that allows us to tap into that consumer trend that we talked about in the beginning, which is the people want this no compromise offering. And so we have to express our values. And as I said, consumers are smart but busy, and there is so much noise. Every brand in the world says they're sustainable right now. Like Ziploc bag, you go on their website, they're like, we're incredibly sustainable. Single-use plastic bags, mind-blowing that they would do that with a straight face, but everyone does it. So we have to cut through the noise, and this is where our message needs to be unbelievably clear, consistent, and never take a shortcut. And that's the approach we've taken.
You're in the business of selling a lot of sustainable products. We're in the business of selling, data and insights to help companies like yours make great calls. So, let's talk a little bit about pixie dust. Before we talk about how you track your brand health, I'd love to talk to you about, how are you deciding what shoes to design, what to name them? You've got all these great names, what colors to go with. What your prices are ridiculously low. I'm always telling you should raise prices, but clearly you've got data that tells you you're at the right price point. How are you all bringing that data in, evaluating that data? Like, how rigorous do you prosecute your data before you make these really bold moves, branding campaigns? Like, there's a lot of data-driven decisions. I'd love for you to share with our audience here what makes the magic.
Yeah. So let me first say that like I'm kind of the data side of the duo, and my partner is an incredible creative, really a creative genius. And I will say that data is incredibly good to look backwards, and it's also really good to look forwards in certain things, but there is an amazing amount of art in what we do. And I wouldn't want to take away from the fact that there is a design thinking that is very forward looking and takes bold bets and is creative in order for us to kind of create a vision for where we want to take the product side of the brand. Now, that said, double click one level lower, and we are incredibly data rich. like 99% of our products are sold from our channels, which is our one of our 25 stores or our websites, which are now serving a dozen different languages and serving across 35 countries. But so we have an incredibly rich pool of data, and we also then utilize tools like Momentive now, which I can say I think that's my first time saying that. I'm a little sad about the monkey, but the rich data allows us to do things that power our business and allow us to do the business model that we have today, which is quite unique in our industry. You have to keep in mind that in 2016, when we launched the brand, there were 0 brands that did a direct-to-consumer led strategy in the footwear industry. There's .coms from the brands, but they were all wholesale distribution products that were sold on their website. And so the data is so noisy and so clouded by the fact that 70% of their business and their transactions happens off their platform that they really didn't know exactly what was going on. So we try to harvest this rich data to do a lot of different things. The biggest at the very high level is to serve people with messages that are more resonant than they ever could be. So, we harvest this data to make sure the site experience, the app experience, and the communications that we give them are right time and really resonant. We also need to manage our inventory. How do we know what the mix is across our line of products to produce? And we're doing this far in advance because it just takes a while to make shoes. It's a very, very difficult manufacturing process. And so asking consumers for insights into what they think about the mix, what they think about different styles, and then mapping that back and layering in a whole bunch of data around seasonality and every variable you could think of that could impact a shoe sale down to what the weather is in a region. We need to then dial that in to make good decisions, which are hard to walk back for us. We're shipping products around the world. They're very expensive items that we make, and so these are the decisions that make or break our balance sheet. And if you work in an inventory-laden business, the balance sheet is pretty damn key. So we rely on that extensively, and getting inside of our consumers' homes, surveying them through Momentive, a whole bunch of things that we do in order to try to optimize the decisions before we make those big bets every single week, every single month. And that's that is the value that fuels us from our distribution side and allows us to maintain that vertical retail model where we're touching every consumer every time they make a transaction and trying to optimize that experience for them.
And talk to us a little bit about that backward-looking data. You are obviously our launch partner for our industry tracking solution. And, as you think about what makes a brand, you don't rely on patents. You just said you open source a lot of your special sauce. You have all these incredible ingredients, the brand name, Allbirds.com, the site, employee base that loves working there. Like, what is a brand to you? How do you measure the health of your brand? How do you know when you're doing a good job? How do you know when Nike or others are trying to copy you? What's that analysis look like when you have your cup of coffee and you're sitting in your chair looking at data tell you?
Yeah, I think about a brand comprehensively. So our brand is really made up of 3 things. It's the products, first and foremost. That is really the biggest expression of our brand. The second is our voice, and that includes things like our name, the personality, what we say to consumers, and then lastly is the experience that you have with our brand. So, and an experience, we need to have an amazing shopping experience, amazing digital experience, an amazing customer service experience. If you have an issue, great logistics. We've invested in 9 distribution centers around the world to make sure we can, with a click of a button, that you can get your products for free shipping in 35 countries. We can reach 2.5 billion people with a click of a button now. So we've invested really heavily in the experience. But to talk specifically about the question you asked on brand, the product needs to look good, and it needs to perform well, and it needs to be fueled by our values. And so this is about fueling with sustainability, being incredibly comfortable and performing well, and just looking beautiful. And all of that is fueled with this natural innovation that we already talked about. So that's absolutely critical for us. And we try to keep, this isn't like a move fast and break things business model. This is like, let's set the bar really high. And if we cannot launch a product that meets that high bar, we will not launch that product. And this happens, unfortunately, in our company. It does happen. Maybe like once a year, we'll have a launch and we just pull the launch. We're 1 month away and we'll pull it. And it's just not meeting the bar. And so, and we just, those decisions, they're company forming, they're big moments. We cost ourselves quite a lot of money in doing that, but we always think for the long term, that's right. So that's one aspect that's important to mention. But I think voice, how our brand shows up. We are trying to, I wish we could do a little poll here, but on how many people have heard of Allbirds before they came onto this webcast. What we know very clearly with great certainty, because of the tools that we use with you guys, Zander, is that we know that if you ask 100 Americans today if they've heard of Allbirds, 11 would say yes, which is encouraging to me, because it means that we have 9 or 10x to go from where we are, which is pretty exciting. But not only do we just ask that simple question, but we have to ask, what do you perceive about the brand when you hear about the brand? So for those 11 people of the 100 that know us, what do you perceive? What attributes do you perceive? And how do you perceive that relative to other competitors in the space? And we ask these questions every quarter, and we do it longitudinally, so it's really statistically accurate, and we can bank on this information. And so then every quarter, we can understand, how have our communications, how is our voice, that part of our brand, how is that showing up with consumers? And is that voice delivering on the sets of values and the sets of messages that we would like to convey? And how are we doing relative to what other people are saying? And sometimes we try really hard, and we're always doing a lot of very creative marketing campaigns where we're trying to express these values first. And sometimes we screw it up. And if we didn't look at this data, we would never know. And sometimes we're seeing people out there doing some interesting stuff, but we know it's full of BS. And we are like, that's actually working, because their perception on this attribute is actually picking up steam. And we can see that in the data. And so we can tune our message. And this isn't about just like doing great manipulative marketing, but it's really understanding the consumer and understanding how to speak to them so that we can express the authentic values that we've worked so hard to do through our product and the expression of our whole company. We need to do that well, and we need this data every single quarter. And we've had some significant gains in aided marketing awareness. And we do that, and we know how to push that lever. And then we match that back with the return on our advertising spend, so that we can say the best creative is the one that lifts marketing awareness. It has the most positive perception when it comes to the environment when people associate us, and it performs. It helps us sell stuff, so that we're stealing share from competitors who are doing a bad job on the environment. And so we're also making the world better. So that's how we focus on this. And that's why we are so studious on something that maybe, sometimes feels like, why do you really need to know marketing awareness? Well, it drives a huge amount about what we do. And I think we're your first partner on that platform, if I'm not mistaken.
You are. And obviously the bigger and stronger you get, the more of a testimonial it is for the power of our industry tracking brand. So we love to see your growth. You have an Allbirds sock that is blocking part of the camera there. So move your corner. I've got something.
I did. Sorry.
No. There you go. Talk to us a little bit about new product categories as you think about, if you're anything like me, you come in and talk to your team about, hey, I've got this great idea, and they kind of nod at you, and then they show you data why your idea is so bad. How do you think about kind of new categories you're going to launch into new markets? Is that all data driven, or do you and your co-founder come with kind of big ideas and the team fleshes out?
There's a combo, like we do. It's a big idea, and then it's a validation. And, sometimes it's like a data rich survey, and sometimes it's qualitative. And there's, we often go to our customers' houses, and we ask them to show us their closet, and we walk through, and once in a while I'll come in and be the cameraman, so that I can just really observe it firsthand and ask a few questions. Cause there's nothing like understanding how someone lives and how they shop and what their what they're doing in order to inform a decision and see what are the gaps in their wardrobe. And I mean, when you ask these questions of consumers, they're so thoughtful about what they're doing when you force them to articulate why they do stuff. And so we just learn it. We learn a ton. So we try to set a leading design vision, and then we try to whether confirm or reject that thesis by doing a lot of data work and also, you know, those in-home visits and that qualitative stuff. So it's a balance of art and science, and you can never just be on the science side when you're doing something so creative and tactile. And so, you know, we're always trying to create. Look, we put the waste stream of crab shells in our T-shirts in order to make it antimicrobial. And our marketing team at the time, I remember, they're like, crab shells, huh? Like, thanks for that one. Let's see what we can do with that. But we had this like view that this was something that was like, why does the world need another T-shirt? Like, we need to make a compelling reason to deliver something of incredible value with incredible feel and incredible performance, all derived from nature, in order to make that happen. And so that's, you know, that's the stuff where it's a little bit more art sometimes.
Joey, I don't know if this was a goal or not, but this interview is exposing what the cool CEO of Allbirds is such a nerd. I mean, your team must want to knock the biotech out of you sometimes just to make their jobs easier. I'm going to ask a couple of rapid fire questions if you can accommodate here. What trends today in commerce technology are underappreciated? If you were to counsel young people today, like, what are the things that from 5-10 years from now that are going to just be massive opportunities that maybe is not getting the kind of coverage or kind of VC funding or kind of exposure that you would expect given the lens you have?
It's an interesting question. So I think this one may be a little obvious, but I think the world of selling other people's goods and curating merchandise is slimming down. And so amazing retail is going to be stuff with proprietary merchandise that customers can interact with quite directly, versus going to your department store or your like flea market online kind of situation. Amazon seems to have wrapped that part of the market up pretty tightly. So other than that, I think that's really difficult. I think immersive technology to create commerce experiences is coming, and I am a believer in the future of what VR and AR are going to do for commerce to shrink that gap between what I believe is a much better shopping and commerce experience, which is in the store. I really believe that. When you come into our stores, it's just our people are awesome. The environment is immersive. So how do you shrink what is a worse experience on the shopping side? Like, it's maybe more convenient because the shoe just shows up at your door. But on the shopping side, how do you shrink that digital to in-store gap? AR and VR are doing some pretty cool stuff. If you look at our app, like, you can try on shoes virtually, augmented reality on your feet with your camera on your phone via our Allbirds app, and you can do that, and you can like, we get less returns because of that, because people see what it looks like on them, and they love that stuff. So that shrinks the gap. I think things like that, like VR headsets, are an interesting opportunity. That now that we see we need to collaborate and we can't just do Zoom. I think VR has a role to play in collaboration while still virtual and remote. And I think once you get shoppers instead of just gamers on those platforms, I think shopping is going to be an interesting extension from that. And finally, I'll just say, there's a lot changing in ad tech. The consolidation of the ad inventory to a couple of players, and with all the privacy changes that are happening, we're seeing an increasing consolidation as a result of that. It's not making things it's not making things easier. But so that consolidation is driving, I'd say, a different change on where in the interaction with the brand people are going to start to transact. So I'd say really soon people are going to start transacting on publishers' platforms, and that's a big, interesting change that I think will reshape how commerce happens and shift some power back into publishers, in fact, which could be an interesting swing out of what has been a really big consolidation trend for a while.
Fascinating. Have you had to brush up on your political science? Speaking of commerce, the world of globalization is changing pretty significantly with the cooling of relations between us and China. the component shortages in chips. Are we going to move back to a world where everything needs to be kind of manufactured on your home turf and all the proprietary technology needs to be insourced? How are you thinking about your kind of infrastructure and global supply chain?
Yeah, I mean, the last 2 years have made me a geopolitical wonk. I mean, I've like, it's amazing as such a small company as we are, how we've been exposed to, virtually every event that I pick up the newspaper in the morning, I'm like, okay, shit, what's going to happen now? Because it's, the logistics challenges that we're facing today are months of delays beyond what is typical for shipping product into the U.S. that's made offshore. Tariffs and duties, what's changing in terms of climate policy, and all that is really intriguing. And I think very, very positive, the signs that we're seeing now on the environmental regulation side, and those are good, but those do affect businesses in a big way. Us less so than most others, but I think all of this is fascinating. And I will say I'm not going to sit here and say all production for goods is coming back into local decentralized manufacturing, because the reality is the only way that happens is through massive automation and capital expenditures, and that doesn't create as many jobs as people I think are hopeful for. And so I think there's real power in global trade and using different countries' expertises and strengths in order to really lift up those economies and take advantage of that in the U.S. as a great consumption economy. Now, I think we could be using the leverage of the U.S. consumer to push different agendas in other countries, like cleaning up their grid and doing things, which unfortunately we have never taken the view that our consumerism as Americans is such a big, powerful tool, and we've just underutilized that in terms of shaping the way that the world develops when we push manufacturing into different regions of the world. So that's a missed opportunity that I hope we change our tune on as a country, and maybe we will. But that's the one thing I'd like to see.
Supply chains, tariffs, taxes, COVID. It's been a lot for the CEO to manage and think about how you grow the business. Joey, are you bullish on the long-term prospects for environmental regulation, companies grokking what the consumers care about? Like, are our kids 30 years from now going to be living in a safer, healthier world, or is it going to get a lot worse before it gets better?
A balanced answer here. So I think the U.S. government and our structure it's incredible, and capitalism is incredible, and what it's done for the world is incredible. Yet our system isn't set up to really combat a huge existential threat of a challenge like climate change that just inches forward day by day. Like big shocks to the system, our government is amazing at solving problems like that. But these slow moving changes, and the concern that I have is it's so slow moving that you don't really feel it until it's too late. And so I think if we don't act incredibly fast, we're going to be past the point of no return pretty quickly. That's not to say that it's a death sentence for humanity, but I will say that is the threat that looms large for me, is that I believe we're not fighting. It's funny. We're not fighting for the planet. We're fighting for ourselves. The planet's going to be fine if we get knocked off the map because of climate change. The climate will bounce back. The planet will be fine. We'll just be gone. And right. We're creating this like dinosaur extinction event right now. And so yet at the same time, look, we're talking about data and market research here. When we look at fashion, sustainable fashion as a search term on Google, it has grown 600% in the 5 years since we started our business. So consumers are now starting to put their consideration set for products as a values first consideration set, which is pretty amazing. And it just shows you the power of what a consumer can do. So politicians right now are unfortunately the laggards, but when the consumer leads and you have businesses, hopefully like Allbirds, taking the lead on pushing an agenda and connecting that to amazing products that don't sacrifice on the performance that people have come to love, then maybe politicians will follow. And that is a powerful opportunity. And we're seeing a lot of positive momentum in consumers. I think we're starting to see some really interesting stuff from the Biden administration. The Chinese government with President Xi is pushing for a carbon neutral by 2060, Japan and Korea by 2050. Like there's real stuff happening here. And when these governments—
we need more Allbirds candidates for Senate. I'm going to open it up for questions from our audience. If you want to put your questions in the chat. Zubin Shah asks, what kind of market data, Joey, do you look at to evaluate competitive advantage? How can you leverage that in a commodity market? Part of your market is a commodity-driven market. How do you leverage data to be more profitable and grow faster than your peers?
Interesting. Well, so first of all, I would definitely say that I think I've worked in commodity markets before, and I wouldn't consider apparel and shoes a commodity market. Yep. So I'll try to distinguish between those a little bit, but I do think that in our business, I think we've talked about it at length, but the value that we get out of market research allows us to spend the least amount of money on inventory and get the most return out of that and have the least waste. So we never discount. We've never discounted a product, and we've been able to do that because we use data. If we didn't use data, we wouldn't have gotten that lucky. So that's one thing. On the commodity side, it's trickier and it's a different style of marketing. However, there's always innovation on how people are incorporating products into their end use or whatever they're doing with that commodity. And I think there's tons of opportunities to understand what's moving and how people's sentiments are changing and how to interject in a better way when you're a producer of something that might only have a slight variance in terms of quality.
You don't need to discount. The men's Tree Dashers are only $125. These are literally the most comfortable shoes on earth. You can wear them with socks, without socks. You wear them to run. You can wear them in the house. They're awesome. Rebecca asks, Joey, are you ever going to bring back the elephant grass yellow?
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know.
What kind of edibles are people eating when they name these shoes?
Yeah, that's exactly. We have a den where we make all our color choices. Now we have I'll say we have a very sophisticated team of people that just focus on color and style, awesome. And they will be able to answer that a lot better than I can here.
Minter asked a question that I'm going to paraphrase and maybe add on to, but how do you manage voice in your company and think about diversity, equity, inclusion in your hiring practices, your promotion practices? Like you said, the way you show up for consumers, the way you talk about your products, the way you advertise, the way you recruit is so critical. Maybe talk a little bit about the CEO in a very socially dynamic and volatile environment, how DEI plays into your products.
Yeah. So in a really big way, one of the things that we've always been a believer in is that, climate change is we believe the existential threat to our species. And it's incredibly clear that it disproportionately impacts lower socioeconomic populations, and particularly in America, socioeconomics correlate with race in a lot of ways, and at least in a lot of pockets. And so sometimes I think, particularly in urban environments, the worst impacts of pollution sit on the least advantaged folks in the country, and that is a really bad thing. Some people call that environmental justice as the movement to combat that. So that's always been something we've focused on and built into our company from day one. We also, we wrote a vision statement when we started the company. It's a 3-page vision document that kind of outlines the strategy for what we wanted to march down and achieve. And we talked about our employee population matching that of the consumer that we wanted to meet. And if we can't make sustainability mass, we can't make sustainability cool, we're going to fail. And so we work our ass off to make sure that we can reach a broad swath of the population. And our brand voice is a manifestation of the people who speak it. and that's our employees. And so if we don't do a good job of bringing a diverse pool of talent into our doors, we're going to be a worse business. So yes, I believe that combating, the institutionalized inequality in our country is the right moral imperative, but it's also a business imperative for us to do that. And like that's the goal, and that's what we're trying to do. And
I love it.
Certainly not perfect. So
I can't believe you're still only at 11% brand awareness. You're right. It just goes to show you just how much more opportunity in a diverse and talented workforce will help you get there. Michael Dad asked, have you considered incorporating video in your qual studies, like home walkthroughs with your customers? I love your home walkthroughs. Brad Smith, former CEO of Intuit, is on our board, and he started the Take Me Home program, watching people do their taxes, and learned a ton. I contrast that with Kevin Plank, former CEO of Under Armour, who shared a story about their all-male executive team that launched the women's sports bra, and what a disaster that was for Under Armour. So I think you're somewhat creepy, but really innovative program of filming people's closets is pretty awesome. But answer Michael's question about incorporating video into your qual studies.
Yeah, we do that. So we also present video. I remember you talk about price, Zander. The first time we launched the Wool Runner, and we had one product. When you launch a company with one product, like you don't have the opportunity to be like, oh, let's like move price around and like let's tweak it here and there. Like we were like, this is a big decision. And so we had, I remember this day so vividly. We launched an 8-cohort monkey survey to a pool of folks that we thought were our target customers. And we showed a video, we showed some product, and then we asked them through different cohort analyses what was the right price, and we tried to triangulate through kind of a conjoint style study using the tool on what to land on price. And if you can't use video, there's no way you're going to get a real answer. And that's what I say. The digital to store gap is big. Now try to think about that and make a huge strategic decision, like the price that you're going to pick for the first 3 years of our company. That price made or broke whether someone converted on our website, whether they liked it, whether they thought it was valuable, and data was at the core of that, and a video to understand that kind of insight was really at the root of that.
I love it. I asked for questions too late. They're streaming in now, and we're getting short on time. But Joey, I gotta say, you may be a lot younger than me, but I gotta say you're a mentor. You are not only building a world-class business that is taking share, growing, making your investors a lot of money, but you do it in such an elegant and authentic way, and you're saving the environment while you're at it and creating incredible products. So I want to thank you for being such a great customer. I want to thank you for being such a business leader and sharing your insights so generously with us today. You are inaugural speaker at Momentive, kicking off our Fast Forward Live conference, and you did a great job as always.
Well, humbled to hear you say that, Zander, and huge fan of you guys, mutual admiration club. So thank you very much for including us.
And thanks to our audience. Go to allbirds.com. They have some amazing products. I promise you, if you're not happy, send me a note and I'll see if I can help. Zander at surveymonkey.com until we change our emails. Take care, everybody. We'll stay tuned for our next speakers. We've got Aileen Lee from Cowboy Ventures. We've got Brad Gerstner, the founder of Altimeter. Priyanka Carr, general manager of Momentive, is going to share some really great insights in her discussion next. And we've got a ton of great programming for you. So thanks for being with us. Take care.